Hey guys, Trick Studios here with the stop motion how-to. I'm going to go over really basic stuff, and in the link below I'll post how to do keying, how to do maybe more advanced stop motion, but I'm just going to show you guys basic tricks and what I do when animating. Basically I have some kind of setup, whether I make the set myself or if I have a green screen and pre-recorded footage of an area I want to put the figure in. Usually what I do now is I have a figure that is really poseable. I don't like using figures that can only move at maybe a few joints. I want many joints so I can get a huge range of motion. Like this figure has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's just a lot of joints. Like in the tail alone, there's probably more than the body. So, and as with my stop motion figures, there's a lot of ability to move because I use wire, which I'll get to in the how-to of how to do a stop motion figure, which will be made next week. We're making Godzilla, by the way, I decided. I'm just Godzilla crazy right now. You just want a huge range of motion to carry out any action you want this figure to perform. The thing is, if you have a figure that can only move its arm like this, you're not going to really be able to do much. Or you will be able to do it and it'll just look unrealistic. It'll look you'll look at it and say, how is he climbing? How is he doing this as climbing? It just doesn't work. But if you have them where, there's more movement in the arm, you can do a lot more with that and make it look more believable. Now you don't want animation to look so believable that people think it's lifelike. You can do that, but sometimes you want animation to stay fictional, to give it that fantasy feel, which is what Ray Harryhausen always wanted, because he didn't want it to be so real. He wanted it to keep a fantasy quality to it. He wanted it to be like a dream world, to keep that mystery, to keep that storybook kind of feel to it. Now you can have your figures be lifelike and put them, and use the editing software you have to make it look like it's actually there and actually living. Depending on whether you're doing a cartoon or a CGI, that is the range of where you want your figure to be. Whether it's cartoon to CGI lifelike. That's your range. For me, I try to keep it more close to lifelike, but still have a fantasy quality to it. And that's where we are. That's where we usually are with stop motion. Because usually we can't really be lifelike. We can get close, but we can't be fully lifelike. The crowd is always going to know that that's not real, or it doesn't look real. But we can get pretty damn close. As for setup, you want a tripod camera, whether it's still picture or video. I'm using video right now, obviously, and I switch between the two depending on what I feel like doing. The benefits of still picture camera is you can use each picture as a frame, so you can go back and edit that picture and edit the frame. Video is a little more difficult because the video puts each frame in order already for you, so you'd have to go in and segment those frames and then edit them from there. But of course the benefit of video, like I said, is it puts it in order for you and it sequences it. Because it's video, it has to keep going. Still picture, it'll stay there. And usually if you put still picture in a timeline on your editing software, it'll usually put each picture out for 5 seconds. And you don't want a frame for 5 seconds because you'll be staring at a movement that should only take a few seconds for maybe a few minutes. You just don't want that. Whether, again, you want a figure that's really posable or has enough joints to get a motion that you desire. A screen, I'm not going to say green screen because I'll get to that in a second, or a built set that you have for your film. Now I just have, for this video I have a green screen, but why I said screening a few seconds before is because you can have this as any color. If you use the effect chroma key, you can click on what color you want, what color the background is. You can have your background purple. I don't really recommend that because purple is an odd color and it might be a little difficult to screen, but you know, you just want a solid color, no gradient, no darker here, lighter here. You just want one solid color so it removes the whole background and leaves just your figure remaining. Now as for right now, I have shadows all over the place. You don't want that when animating on a green screen, because when you go to get rid of the green, it's gonna put edges here all around and it'll go into that a little bit, but those darker areas won't be removed as well as you'd like. You'll still see them in little blotches of dark green. To get rid of that, what you want is your setup to have 3 different lights, whether one from above or from the front, and then 2 from the side. That way, light is focused from all angles onto your screen and gets rid of all shadows. Now you might not be able to get rid of maybe the shadow under the figure unless you add like a 4th smaller light, which would be helpful, but you kind of want, sometimes you want to keep that shadow, because when you put it on a green screen, that shadow will add to the realism of it being in the shot. And as for that, if you have lights all around, it gets rid of the shadows and it makes it easier to keep it that one color and remove that one color. Now as for animating, which is the most important part, which you've all probably been like, okay, yeah, get on to that key moment. Animating isn't too difficult once you've done it a couple times. If you've done anything a couple times, it becomes easier and easier. It just takes practice to get better. I've been doing this since I was 10. I'm 19 now. That's 9 years of animating. I have 9 years under my belt. Or in my brain, whatever you want to say. As for animating a figure, you put them in a starting pose, wherever you'd like, and then, depending on what you want them to do, you just keep moving the figure just a tiny bit, and then hit pause and record or take a picture. That's 1 frame. And then you go to the next frame. A little bit again, a little bit again, a little bit again, and then that's the next frame. And you keep doing this to get a range of motion where it will eventually look like it's moving on its own. The more frames you have, the more lifelike and smooth your animation is going to be. If you simply go like this, to that, that's only 3 frames. And the usual rate is either 12 frames per second or 30 frames per second. If you only have 3 per second, or just 3 in a certain amount of time frame, it's just going to be like 1, 2, 3. And it's not going to look right. You're not going to have that desired effect. That's something I learned as I kept animating. The more frames you have, the more fluid your animation will be, and the more realistic your figure will move. Realistically, your figure will move. That's basically it on animation. Just start with your figure, do a couple test animations before you actually do a final animation. Get used to your figures, get used to your set, know what your figure can do, what it can't do. If I know Godzilla can't really stand on 1 foot if I tip him over like this and have him stand on 1 foot because it's a really heavy figure. If you have a lighter figure, maybe they can do that. It just all depends on your figure, your set, and really just what you're having the figure do. You control what happens. You're like a god, and these are your creatures that you create. Sorry to get a little religious there. I hope no one is offended by that. You know, you're a creator. You create a world and the creatures within it, and then you bring them to life. That's animating. Or characters, and you make them, and you put them in a story, and you create how they move and interact with other characters. Now, for stop motion animation, it doesn't just go to fake moving figures. This type of animation is called puppet animation, where you have a figure, like a toy, or a stop motion puppet, and you move it, and it's a three-dimensional figure, and you move it that way. You can do 2D animation this way by drawing and then redrawing. That's how animation is. You draw each movement, or in the computer you move your figure and set a frame on the computer. So what I recommend doing is just, you know, like I've said, get a good setup that makes it easier for you to animate. Get a figure that's posable, that's able to do the motions that you want it to do, and then just even how to key on certain programs. I use Adobe Premiere. I've used Windows Movie Maker. You can do it on either program. You can do it on Final Cut Pro. It's just level of advanced effects. Windows Movie Maker, you can't do green screening. You need a higher up program. But again, in the links below, I'll post more on animation to help you all out. I'll post links on how to key, and maybe even I'll put some set tutorials on how to make your own sets depending on what you want to do. I hope this helped, guys. Next week I'm going to be doing a stop motion on how to make a stop motion puppet. We're going to be making Godzilla. So if hopefully everything goes to plan, we'll be making a Godzilla puppet. This figure is, if you want this figure, it's SH Monster Arts Bandai toy line for the Godzilla series. Just look them up. This figure is $60 though, due to the amount of detail and articulation. I'll post a link. You know what? I'll post a link for that too. If you guys need more help, send me an email or watch one of the videos in the links below. I'll see you guys later. Bye.